We got Gators Breakdown here. We know we're business.
Gators Breakdown, because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I'm your host, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_SEC. It is spring football, and that means, hey, we got a jam-packed episode of Gators Breakdown. We have the Russ, Ron, and Joe show here on Gators Breakdown. That sounds like a country music morning talk show. Russ, Ron, and Joe show. Anyway, Russ Callaway, Ron Roberts, Joe Brady right here, and their press conferences to help get spring practice started. So we hear from all of those, their press conferences, getting us talking about the offense, the defense, special teams right here in this episode of Gators Breakdown. We'll get into the latest from Florida spring practice. Offensive coordinator Russ Callaway, he'll discuss the offense's versatility with DJ Lagway at quarterback, while defensive coordinator Ron Roberts breaks down the defensive, the impressive growth there and development. And then we go to special teams. And special teams coordinator, game changer, senior analyst Joe Houston. He shares his approach to utilizing all those playmakers Florida has and teases, those return packages. Using those playmakers for 2025. So, hey, going to be a jam-packed episode here on Gators Breakdown. And, of course, all spring long, our coverage of spring football will be brought to you by Florida Victorious. And with all the new going on, it's a great time to join. You could be the difference by joining Florida Victorious. Your support can directly impact the outcome on the field. You want to help the Gators win? You want a better game day experience? Well, just like when you pack the swamp, your unwavering support through Florida Victorious empowers the Gators to be their best. If you enjoy player access, you'll find even more of it at Florida Victorious. Members receive invitations to exclusive events like the meet and greet after the spring game, access to exclusive merchandise and memorabilia, great sports coverage from Nick De La Torre, and more. Hey, speaking of that, Nick gets to stay for all of the practices there, so you can, you can check out what his insider notes from practice right there at Florida Victorious. There's never been a better time to join. So join today, make a difference in bringing victory to the orange and blue. Visit floridavictorious.com to join now. All right, plenty to get into, as I said. Man, just offense, defense, special teams. We'll go all around. Let's start with Russ Callaway. Let's start with the offense. Of course, the most polarizing side for look, that's college football, but always for Florida fans, for Gator Nation. It's the offense. Let's hear from Russ Callaway as they hit the practice field for 2025 spring football and where he sees this offense at.
I'll tell you what's unique about this group is this is the first year, I think, since we've been here where, we've had talent, we've had guys that worked, but our best players are about the work this year. And this is the first time I think we can really say that. Sure, we've had guys that have been really good players that have been about the work, but just overall as a unit, this is the first time that, hey, all the starters are like, they're not just the best players, but they're the ones that are up here all day putting in the extra work, extra time. So that's really good to see for sure.
Florida fans would kill me if I didn't ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
We've been getting asked it all offseason. Obviously, you guys are loaded at receiver, and you got a big-time quarterback in DJ. Do you think we'll see some more potential 4 or 5 wide receiver sets given y'all's personnel?
Yeah, I would say yes, but it's not just that grouping. We also got really good tight ends, too. We have really good running backs. We've talked about doing multiple groupings with multiple people. At the end of the day, the best players are going to be on the field, bottom line. And week to week, it will change game plan depending on what type of defensive structures that we're seeing. That's the NFL system that we run. We're trying to get the best players the ball in space as quickly as possible, but we also want the matchup to be right. So we want to put there. We want to get our strongest link on their weakest link, and that could be a star one week, it could be a safety one week, a linebacker, et cetera. But to answer your question, yes, there's plans for multiple groupings, not just 11 and 12, but just, again, trying to get all the guys that we have here that are going to be finally healthy, get them involved and get them going.
How many weapons do you got? I know you just lost Badger and DK, but still feel like there's a lot of weapons there.
Yeah, no, we really – I tell you what, our receiver room – and, again, it ain't just receivers, just running backs, tight ends, quarterbacks. But, the young guys we signed at receiver, holy cow. Those guys are, again, they're really good players, but they're extremely hard workers, right? And I have not seen a young group like this, not just about the ability that they have, but they're up here. It's almost annoying how much they're up here wanting to get extra work, and that's when you know you're on the right ones. And same thing with the running back room. You know, we got guys that have played significant snaps in many games last year, and we got guys that we signed this year that are going to be involved just as well. So it's fun to see. And again, what it does is it gets a sense of competition, you know, and it holds everyone accountable. And then you just constantly see guys keep going up in the ranks. And so it's been really great to see.
When it
comes to opening up the passing game and being able to change things, how much of that is just DJ, what he's able to do, the skill set that he brings to the table?
Yeah, he's obviously extremely accurate in general, but very much so accurate with the deep ball. But look, our pass game is going to be dictated on how well we run the ball. Like if we can run the ball, we're going to be able to throw the ball down the field, and if we can't, then we won't. But again, that's the complementary football. That's what we want. We want to be able to run it when we got to run it. All right, we'll mix it up, take a shot, take a movement, whatever it may be. But it all works together, and that's why I think offensively, I think we have a chance to be really special with not just the quarterback that we have, who is obviously really special, but the receivers, the running backs, the offensive line, the tight ends, and that to me, in my experience, when you're able to be really good at one thing, that makes the other thing that much better, and then you can sprinkle in the wrinkles accordingly as you see fit. So I'm excited to see that.
I'm excited too. I think you've recruited almost to this year for the Florida offense. You know, Anthony Richardson at quarterback in year one. Okay, Graham Mertz to transfer in year two. Thought you might have him as a returning starter last season, but not really. So you have a returning starter this year in Graham Mertz or in DJ Lagway. Weird how it all came together, but he is a returning starting quarterback, and you know, in a lot of ways, because he wasn't supposed to be the starting quarterback, but ended up being the starting quarterback. So, hey, look, the first time since Billy Napier's been here that he's had his recruited quarterback coming back for a season. Weird how it all happened, but hey, look, you know, I feel like the tools are there for this Florida offense to play it however they need to, or it needs to be. That's where it needs to be. I mean, listen. It's always nice when you can run the ball effectively, especially in this Billy Napier offense. We know it opens everything up. But I think what I like is that, you know, they don't have to be stuck in one style. If you need to pound the rock, they can do that. Need to air it out, they need to be able to do that too. I think this is what you've recruited for with the skill at running back that we saw from young guys last year like Jaden Ball, and what you've recruited at receiver the last couple of years. And, you know, look, when one thing isn't clicking, Florida needs to have the ability to pivot and find success another way. Look, I'm not saying this offense is going to be unstoppable. I'm not saying that by any means. Every team got their off days. But by the end of 2025, by the end of this coming up season, I think we're going to be looking at a pretty balanced attack. Some games, Lagway might need to sling it 40 times. The other games, he might only need to throw it 25 while the ground game takes over. Florida needs to be able to pivot. Florida needs to be able to win the game. Florida needs to be able to dictate. If they need to run the ball to win the game, go run the ball to win the game. If you need to throw the ball 40 times to win the game, go throw the ball 40 times to win the game. Now, there's been a lot of talk about personnel packages and stuff as well. I'm sure you guys seen that out there. And, you know, if Florida's going to play 11 personnel, 12 personnel, it's kind of, you know, been the staple so far of a Billy Napier offense. Will we go more 4 receivers? We'll go 5. We go 5 wide. You know, it's been out there. It's been a lot of talk, not just because, you know, it was just brought up in this recent press conference, but it's just kind of been since Billy Napier's been calling plays, since it's been his offense. Will Florida open up the offense? Here's the interesting part of it, though. I think with all this receiver talent, as I'm talking about what you've kind of recruited for, which you've kind of, I think, hit on a good bit. It started with that, you know, Trey Wilson, Aiden Mizell, Andy Jean class, Andy Jean on the way out, of course. And then really hit the jackpot with Dallas Wilson, Vernell Brown III, Nexon Montgomery, this last class. So you've recruited this class, this room, that wide receiver room has been elevated. There's a very high ceiling there with a very high ceiling quarterback. So all this receiver talent, Lagway's arm, solid pass protection with starters coming up in front of you in the offensive line. Might we see more 4 or 5 wide receiver sets? It may not be the bread and butter, but definitely as a changeup. This is never going to turn into an air raid offense, no matter how good his receivers are. Lagway is not Billy Napier's MO. Look, that's not really college football either. Really, honestly, your team's winning right now. They got successful ground games to go along with it. It's not a Mike Leach offense. It's not look, as much as Heupel and Tennessee get all the praise for what they could do with quarterbacks. Didn't see it last year with Nico, but they were a really good rushing offense. Got to be balanced. You certainly got to have that quarterback that can do it, though. Let's not forget about Jaden Ball. I mean, do you really? You got a playmaker like that? You want to feed him the ball too, right? I mean, this isn't going to be an offense where you're throwing the ball 40, 50 times a game and you got a really good running back behind Lagway that you're just not getting him the ball. It's about finding that sweet spot. Not going to go full air raid because you got these talented backs. But you're not just running it down everyone's throat either because, man, you got a quarterback and a receiver that quarterback and receivers that really should be able to play together. Lagway in his second year, what you've recruited at receiver, is a good problem to have. Now it's just about Napier and Callaway finding the right mix for each situation. Callaway elevated to that offensive coordinator role. He's going to be more in the meetings, more in the game plan sessions. Napier's still calling the plays on game day. It's about finding the right mix for each situation. And there's another interesting angle to consider here. When you say you want Florida to go more 4 receiver set, 5 receiver set, Napier's still the primary play caller. We know he loves that 12 personnel. And honestly, it's been his most successful package. But here's the thing. Teams know Florida's going to run out of that formation more often than not. Now, it doesn't matter if you're to me, predictability can be overrated. You can know what I'm doing. And if I can still do it, if I can still dictate it, I don't care. I don't care if you know I'm about to run the ball down the middle. If you can't stop it, you can't stop it. But there is a sense of predictability with the offense. That's when we've talked about offensive coordinator. Should Napier get one? Should he continue to do it? That's been a big sticking point, is the predictability of the offense. So I've been wondering, without bringing in a play calling OC, can Napier evolve and open up this offense even more? I mean, think about it. Can he successfully call plays with 4 or 5 receivers spread out? He'd have to be able to adapt. He'd have to show he'd be able to adapt. It's not his style. Hasn't never really been his style. But maybe, he's been waiting for the right personnel. Maybe he needed a DJ Lagway at quarterback in this, what I think can be a really incredible group of receivers, before feeling confident enough to really open things up. We saw glimpses of, what could have been last season before injuries to Lagway and Trey Wilson. I think derailed some plans a little bit. This offense maybe could have opened up, but you had an injured Lagway, you injured Trey Wilson, you had young receivers. Did Billy Napier feel confident to open it up? And I'm not saying he's going to just because of Lagway, these receivers. I don't know. But if there ever was a chance to do so, and a chance to feel confident to do so, it needs to be now. Look at the talent now. Wilson, Sturdivant, Mizell, second-year guys, Hawkins and Abrams. There's exciting freshmen, Dallas Wilson and DB3. If Napier doesn't open up the playbook this season, you have to wonder if he ever will. And look, we'll see deep shots. Deep shots are part of Napier's offense. Off of play action, of course. A big bit. You get near midfield, that play action shot's coming. There's kind of part of the predictability, but sometimes that's coming and the play goes for a 40, 50-yard bomb touchdown anyway. But the big question is, can he adapt when needed? Or will he lean on Callaway to help open up the offense? Because, just running his traditional system for tradition's sake may not cut it. He may need to truly believe in whatever changes they make. He needs to truly believe in those changes. If he's going to go and say, hey, I see what we have at receiver. We have this quarterback. He needs to truly believe in it. He needs to fully buy into it. If he doesn't feel comfortable doing it, then okay, don't. I mean, he's got to feel comfortable calling 4 wide receiver sets, 5 wide receiver sets. 12 personnel, it may be considered the optimal. It may be optimal for success, but does it have to be? With these skilled players, the ceiling might be higher with different formations, different personnel, different sets. But there's a lot of talk. Russ Callaway was talking about it, and we'll run more 4 receiver sets, 5 receiver sets. But he made sure to mention we're run the ball. We're a run the ball first kind of team, and we're going to build that off of. We're going to take our deep shots off of play action. But if you want Napier to open it up, you got to remember that's not his bread and butter. So he's going to have to show some adaptability, some change, some willingness to be able to do so. And his willingness is only going to come from confidence. But you bring in guys like Russ Callaway to help you take that next step, to be able to adapt. Of course, Russ Callaway coaches tight ends as well. Let's get into a little bit of tight end talk. That'd be the only position we go specifically in here. Deep conversation as far as the position goes. Redshirt freshman tight end Amir Jackson. I think, man, he's a key player I'm going to be watching in on. One of the most interesting players for spring camp for me. It's his first spring camp. Let's remember, he was a summer enrollee last year. I got a lot of high interest here for him and seeing what he does in his first full season, but second season. Of course, a highly touted recruit. Florida, he plays receiver in high school. Florida's going to make him a tight end. Transition to tight end, of course, once he arrived in Gainesville. What kind of progress is, he making? 21 snaps last year. Of course, his biggest improvement got to come with his blocking. Got to add weight. Got to get stronger. But his routes have improved. As Callaway put it, quote, he's taken 1,000,000 strides. And although he drew praise from Callaway, the reality is the Gators have a lot of returning experience at tight end, of course, in front of him. Hanson, Livingston. Of course, your top 2 guys. But Arlis Boardingham transfers out. So, depth there. There's a chance. He'll have to keep his focus, earn, his playing time. But Callaway's excited about Jackson's potential in the future. Callaway got pretty emotional when discussing Jackson on Saturday in the press conference. He said, quote, obviously phenomenal young man, young guy. He's awesome. He has taken 1,000,000 strides since we first took him in. First off, as a person and as a leader, to be so young is pretty remarkable. His story. I kind of get choked up thinking about it, to be honest. He's unbelievable, Callaway said of Jackson. But on the field, he's been very much improved in the run game. He's always been a really good receiver. But I would say he's taken the most strides in the run game and physicality. Putting on weight, route details. So he has taken 1,000,000 strides forward from when he's got here, and he's still got room to grow. And I think as long as he keeps his head on straight, which I know he will, and he keeps working like he's working, the best is yet to come. So it was always going to take a bit more time for Jackson, even though highly touted, changing positions, going from wide receiver to tight end in the SEC with a bunch of bodies in front of you for last year's Florida offense. He was not going to break through last year. Remember, he didn't enroll until last summer, so this is his first spring practice paired with winter workouts. So Jackson should be ready more mentally and physically this spring practice. Keep it with tight ends, junior Tony Livingston. He was discussed as well, who came on strong late last season, continues to impress Callaway. As Callaway pointed out, Livingston's playtime went up once he finally was consistently healthy. He said, quote, game 6 of last year, the injuries kind of stopped, and then Tony just started taking off, he said. Livingston has reshaped his body, is strong and athletic. When you listen to Callaway talk about him, and you can tell he's excited about Livingston. And that last stretch there, he was playing more than Arlis Boardingham, who had a ton more experience in this offense. It was Hanson and Livingston as your 2 tight ends. So I'm certainly excited about what Livingston can bring to the table. Let's not forget, walk-on tight end Kayla Rios. Someone expected to help contribute this year as well. Another body in this tight end room. We're talking 4 guys here when we get to Hayden Hanson. Transfer from Air Force, so don't forget. Did not appear in any games last season. That was a plan. This year is expected to play in a pretty good amount. He was in that run-heavy Air Force offense, so certainly more of a blocker. They only had 15 catches there before graduating. But Callaway told us there on Saturday, Rios is better as a receiver than one might think. Has a strong understanding of the game. It feels like Rios could be an under-the-radar type of player to watch. And, of course, you know who's been rock solid at that spot the last couple of years. Hayden Hansen, let's not overlook him. Started every single game last year. 15 catches, about 200 yards. Found the end zone once. Probably going to be the go-to tight end one more time this season as far as snaps go. A lot of snaps out there because pretty good blocker in his own right as well. Putting in extra work with the receivers to really sharpen those route running skills. That's kind of the dedication you really like to see from Hayden Hansen. We all know, if you go back to last year, and we were talking spring ball and interviewing Hayden Hansen, and we were talking to both tight ends, him and Arlis Boardingham. For Hansen, it was, hey, okay, I'm more of a blocker. Let me see if I can get better as a pass catcher. And Arlis Boardingham, the pass catcher, was, hey, let me see if I can get better as a blocker. Well, we never really saw that from Arlis Boardingham, and hence why he's on the way out. But Hayden Hansen, did take a step. I thought last year, the 15 catches isn't a lot, of course, but we saw him get better in that area, and certainly can help block. So a little bit of tight end talk right there for you, and some offense talk. But Russ Callaway, OC, right there. It's going to be interesting to see if we'll be able to tell. I think when we get to the season and we kind of go back to the previous conversation, this offense changes at all. It's going to be collaborative, but is it going to be more Billy Napier feeling confident in DJ Lagway and his deep room and receivers, or is it going to be more of just inserting Callaway's philosophy in the offense a bit more? Probably, like I said, it's going to be a combination of those things more than likely if we see some change. Talent's going to be a part of it. The personnel's certainly going to be a part of it. And then, some different roles on the offensive coaching staff. It'll be interesting how it all plays out. Early notes from practice. On Saturday, the ability seen from J. Michael Sturdivant, the wide receiver transfer, of course, being able to get open down the field for some big plays. And also perhaps, Roderick Kearney really pushing Damian George at that right guard spot. We'll have more offensive line talk coming up soon on the podcast, and we'll get into that a little bit more too as well. But George coming in from the offseason a little heavier than maybe he should be. And Roderick Kearney, of course, feeling more comfortable making that switch from center to guard. So as we talk about returning starters along the offensive line, Roderick Kearney may be pushing Damian George for one of those starting spots. Aiden Mazel not practicing on Saturday, so maybe something to look out for as well as we talk about this receiver room. So not a whole lot coming out, of course. Team not even in full pads yet. No really 11 on 11 where you can hit, and you're not doing much hitting in spring anyway, but still just underwear practice for right now. So not a whole lot. Not a whole lot. Jason Saul says, yeah, he's ready to see the 912 represent. That was the area code I grew up in right there in Southeast Georgia. So, yeah, 904 now. But, yeah, there we go. Amir Jackson, Lagonza Hayward. Good stuff, Jason. All right, let's go to defense. Let's hear from defensive coordinator Ron Roberts. Starting with that run for the defense at the end of last season.
I think the back half, our guys played really consistent. I thought we had some guys step into, obviously got thrown into bigger roles and bigger opportunities, and we saw those guys step up, and it was just huge. It's going to add. There's a lot of guys that again played at the end of the year, and we got guys out that they're going to be fighting for position for it as we go through spring or fall camp. So I'm excited about the growth we made. We obviously still not where we want to be, but I think we made tremendous growth going in the right direction.
What are the areas of improvement that you want to see this defense work on now heading into spring from last year?
It starts, probably a little bit of everything, but our first goal for us is really there's guys that we have in backup positions or maybe haven't seen a significant time, and some young players that we got to get them into the can-do category here in spring practice. Because that's just life in the SEC. You're not going to play with 11. You're not going to be able to 22. You know what I mean? So there's some guys that our biggest objective is to get everybody on the same page. And then my other objective was really, come spring, was really increase our football intelligence level across the board, understanding what's getting ready to happen and how we're going to play it.
Vinny Sunseri, obviously a guy that was under Nick Saban, Bill Belichick, the relationship with him.
They're pretty good coaches.
Yeah, two pretty good coaches, right? Yeah, just because of that.
Yeah.
That's good. How that's going to work, the communication and so forth and everything between you two.
Yeah, also, we've had several guys, obviously, that are going to be very excited about what they're bringing in. Not that, just also prior relationship with them, experience in this scheme, those things is going to create tremendous value. And obviously, Vinny, Darren Wilson, Robert Ball, those guys are all amazing coaches, doing a tremendous job of teaching the game, and so it's going to be a collective effort moving forward.
How much are you working?
With Bala coming in as a linebackers coach, how does that help you with being the overall defensive coordinator?
Yeah, well, it does, for me, to move around a little bit, see little pieces. It's not only just, being help where I can, but it's also the ability to evaluate players and what they're good at and what they're not good at. You got to see more eyes on them all the time. So, but he's a huge asset to me just because known him for a while and his experience. He's ran the system before, and just value and things that he's done and input that he can bring to the table.
Will he be the guy on the field?
Huh?
Will he be the guy on the field signaling stuff in from you upstairs?
No. Usually our signal efforts is usually it's a committee effort.
Sure.
You got to get 3 or 4 guys doing it. Because people are really good at stealing them now. So yeah. So it's yeah.
What's the collaboration process like between you and Robert and Vinny in terms of you guys all having that defensive coordinator time?
Yeah. Well, it's not just them. I mean, I think you work best as an organization when it comes from everybody's got input and say so what's going on. Yeah, I'm gonna make the final decision. I'm gonna say here we go, but I'm gonna rely on them in every situation, everything we bring up. And that's not any different than I would do in any other year. You're just like they may be in a little better situation of where they're at, be able to have an input and hey, what's an idea here we need to do. So
there we go, Ron Roberts, talking about this defense and their steps last season. These new coaches that familiarity and with a similar style defense that Ron Roberts ran. And hey, look, there's a lot of young players there. Robert Bala, of course, Vinny Sunseri, really coming from Washington, of course, and Darren Wilson. And we've mentioned not a lot of Power 5 experience, young guys. So Ron Roberts, the godfather of this defense, going to be leading those guys. And you heard the process right there from Ron Roberts of how this is going to work. He'll be in the booth. There's other guys that be on the field. They'll be the ones signaling plays in. And hey, look, there's no doubt anymore. How many times did we get asked last season, who's calling the plays? Or when did it switch from Armstrong to Roberts? Or why is Roberts on the field? And that switches during the season. He's up in the booth. And well, we know the process now. There's no guessing game right now from what we just heard from Ron Roberts. So, hey, look, when you go back and look at it, looking at this defense last season, what a difference we saw as the season went on. And of course, the thing that really worked well for the Gators defense last year was how they used those creepers and simulated pressures. And, it's a complex defense in some ways with those creepers and pressures. And then you were doing it with guys that you didn't expect to be out there. And Florida was winning those big games against LSU and Ole Miss and ending with Florida State and Tulane. And this defense is really, really, putting up a wall and playing a whole lot better. It was guys you didn't expect to be out there. And they were, fitting in and making it difficult for offenses and really difficult up front. But that's Ron Roberts' bread and butter. Those creepers and simulated pressures. Talk about him being the godfather of that offense. It's just the nickname that he got. And it was really cool to see, how much better the defense got as the season went on. And Roberts just knows how to build and I think adjust the defense. And I think that's what showed. Of course, did not start out the way we all wanted it to. And certainly as the season went on and you heard Pup Howard, talk about it too when he was on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. It was like, hey, we had a lot of new pieces. We had transfers. It was, we felt like it was going to take a while, to get our footing. Now they all thought they'd get off to a better start than what they did. But it took a bit to get where they wanted to go. So think about it. When you're only rushing 4 in this Ron Roberts offense. When you're only rushing 4 and dropping 7, you got so many options in coverage there for the defense. I mean, look, that would mix it up. You see cover 3, quarters, Tampa 2, all kind of looks when this defense was doing what they were doing. It really kept opposing offenses on their toes. And in the end, they found this sweet spot of confusion with those 4-man rushes while having enough guys on the back end in coverage to either get to the quarterback and or force some turnovers. I mean, so we just saw guys who it seemed like they flipped a switch. Tyreek Sapp and Caleb Banks and Shamar James. It just really seemed like those guys were steady presences. But in that last stretch, it just seemed like a switch flipped, and you saw a whole nother level of production. The key, really creating those game-changing plays, was getting after the quarterback, forcing those turnovers. Without those defensive stops, the system just doesn't click, doesn't work. Now, of course, they gave up some chunk plays here and there, especially early in the season. But down that stretch, the impressive thing was teams not hitting those home run plays. They became before the end of the season, Florida became a pretty good defense at preventing those back-breaking 40-plus yard touchdowns. Now, of course, you had those rough games against Miami and Texas A&M where they gave up 37 points per game. Then they kind of just locked things down. I mean, 22 points per game the rest of the way. And in those final 4 games, all those wins, defense only allowed 13 points on average, nearly doubled their sack total from the year before for the season, going from 22 to 39, and picked off 14 passes compared to just 3 of the previous season. And Ron Roberts said he wants over 30 turnovers for this 2025 defense. That's the kind of improvement you love to see. And it was guys just stepping up. Like I said, with vets like Saps and Banks or up front, or, you had to get new faces like George Gums, playing his best ball down the stretch. Then on the back end, you just had so many young guys getting thrown out there, and they were still performing. So good stuff, from what we saw with this defense. And now, it's just taking all those young reps and building off of it. And Roberts also discussed, it was the key point here. And you kind of heard him say, we had to throw some guys out there. But he also discussed the Gators not having to hit the transfer portal so hard on defense because of all the playing time that the young players were able to get down that stretch last season. Roberts talked about how young Florida was defensively last year, and that was mainly by design and part of Coach Billy Napier's plan and vision for the program. Quote, "We want to go through the high school ranks, bring them in here and develop players," Ron Roberts said. Now, of course, many of those players have grown up. They're ready to take on bigger roles. And the thing about this is you have to be able to hang on to your recruited players for that to work. And that's been on the positive side for the most part. Now, Edge got hit hard. Jack Pyburn way out. TJ Searcy out. Justice Boone out. Guys you recruited. It's going to happen. But you got to be able to limit it where you can. And for Florida, of course, at wide receiver and offensive line, throughout Billy Napier's tenure, you've had portal needs to be hit, especially when the staff first got here, those first couple of years, to kind of make up for what they walked into. On defense, safety has been a need. We saw that hit hard last year. Defensive line, Cam Banks, Banks, Cam Jackson, they came in from the transfer portal. Edge, as we've seen with Gums and Asari. And it's part of the game now, but we saw how they wanted it to play out this past cycle, and I believe with how they have recruited, not a lot of movement as far as transferring out, and pair that with many guys deciding to stay and not go to the NFL, the plan the staff wants is working for this coming season. And this is the type of year they've built for. And Rod Roberts made sure to hit that point home. Hey, this is the plan. We want to rely more on high school recruiting. Partly the reason why, small transfer class. Robert said the Gators are developing a secondary that truly understands what the coaches are trying to accomplish, though some of the guys are getting trained at different positions. And look, we pointed that out coming into spring football about a week or so ago. Florida was going to have to do that anyway, and what guys were going to be doing that. He pointed out that when players are banged up, it presents an opportunity for younger guys to get valuable reps. The star position, Sharif Denson, Aaron Gates out right now as they recover from injury. You got redshirt freshman Josiah Davis, true freshman Lagonza Hayward, and Alfonso Allen Jr. getting tons of action in practice, making up for those guys being out. So he thinks that extra work now will pay off for each down the road. And that's kind of like we saw with linebacker last year. Jaden Robinson being able to take advantage of that. Pup Howard coming in as a transfer. Him being able to take advantage while they were nursing some injuries for Shamar James and Derek Wingo and the like. So those spring reps paid off, and hopefully they pay off here in the secondary for the 2025 spring. I mean, we saw not every player is going to be able to do it. And not every player is going to be able to do it, but what you'd like to see is if you have to go that route, you get a Tricrest Bridges like performance that we saw last year. He played well at corner. He needed to move to safety. Played well at safety. And just move him around. He did what he was supposed to do. I mean, he was really playing some good corner down the stretch last season. Going to a couple practice notes from Saturday on the defensive side of the ball. In a welcome sight, Jamari Lyons participating without any apparent injury limitations. He wasn't out there Thursday for the first practice, but lo and behold, on Saturday, a welcome sight. And of course, practice is controlled. I don't know if he'd be ready for a game or not, but you would not be able to tell by looking at the video that's out there of Jamari Lyons. It looks like he's out there looking like he hadn't suffered that terrible injury in fall camp last year. I mean, wasn't showing many signs of trouble. No breaks needed. I mean, he was out there looking mobile, running well, showed some quickness and agility, some explosion. He was in a no-contact jersey, but, man, from what we were able to see, no limitations. So that was welcome to see. I mean, I'm telling you, this staff was very, very high on him last fall camp. And then we see him out there on Saturday. And looking like, now, like I said, it's just practice. It's in a more controlled environment. But you wouldn't have been able to tell. If you hadn't known, if you're just coming in, if the alien drops down and watching Florida Gator football practice and Jamari Lyons is sitting there going through those drills you see, they wouldn't have known. They just, hey, why is he wearing a black jersey? Then you had to explain to them of what was going on, but you couldn't really tell. On Saturday for defense, not practicing were, and here's a list, Caleb Banks, Pup Howard, Jameer Grimsley, Bryce Thornton, Sharif Denson. Most of the guys we've discussed coming in, not expected to really see them a whole lot, but not out there on Saturday. So we'll see if any of those guys can contribute at some point this spring. But Caleb Banks, Pup Howard, Jameer Grimsley, Bryce Thornton, and Sharif Denson not out there on Saturday. All right, so there we go. Getting a little bit of thoughts from Ron Roberts and how he's fitting some guys in there on defense, and looking forward to it. Looking forward to a second year under him, more experience for that side. I mean, in a way, some stability and not some stability. Some stability because you got the voice of the defense returning, but once again, some new assistant coaches. So just, kind of a catch-22 there on the defensive side of the ball. All right, let's get into special teams before we wrap up here on this episode of Gators Breakdown with game changer, senior analyst Joe Houston, and start with what it's like having to hit the transfer portal for a punter, Tommy Doman, and then talking about playmakers in the return game.
What's it like portal hunting for a punter?
Competitive. Yeah, we were lucky to get Tommy. Tommy's gonna be a instrumental part of our future this fall.
What was that process like recruiting him? Obviously, probably not a hard sell to replace Jeremy, but what did you guys like about his game and what he can provide?
Yeah, well, first is the experience. Being a 2-year starter at Michigan, playing in tough conditions, also having a guy from a program that's won a national championship. So he's been on that journey before, but the warm weather in Florida was an easy sell. So, yeah, we're very, very fortunate to have him.
And it's also a bonus, too, that he holds?
He does, yes, that's right. So Phil and Crawshaw's shoes are going to be big to fill, but he does hold as well, which is going to be critical.
Where does Trey have room to grow, and what are you looking for this kid for him this season?
Yeah, so I would, Trey missed 3 kicks last year. All right, he missed 3 kicks, and you'd wish you'd have all 3 of them back. Texas, Tennessee, UCF. His field goals are very, I'd say they're NFL caliber. He's got that kind of a leg, the pop, the mentality too that supplements his technique. He's taken leaps and bounds from 23 to 24, and we're looking forward to his development and continued growth in next season. I would say if there's one thing that he would improve on, it was just field goal accuracy, especially on the right hash.
You've got some freshmen that were dynamic return guys in high school. Do you anticipate using them in either the return game or the block kick game?
Yeah, so no, really good question too, because Chim was so great for us. Yeah. A lot of our success on that unit was predicated on him and his decision making, his ability. So we're working a ton of guys at that area, not just some of the younger guys, but Trey Wilson, Tank Hawkins, Jaden Ball, Jacoby Jackson, J. Michael Sturdivant, Aiden Mizell, Vernell Brown III, Duke Clark, Dallas Wilson, Nashawn Montgomery, and DeBron Hampton have all been getting reps at that position, and they're going to compete for it. The best guy's going to be the starter.
Are those guys also in the mixed kick return as well?
Yeah, so it's nice Jaden comes back. Jaden did a good job last year. We're going to see the dynamic and see how the roles are established this year moving forward. That's the beauty of a new year. It's a clean slate for everyone. I haven't called the play, I haven't coached the play, so we're all starting from scratch, and the best players are going to play.
What about pump block, though? What's your mindset going into that? What are you looking for, and who do you see being in those positions?
Yeah, so all those guys that I mentioned are competing. Yes, sir.
For all those. Okay.
That's right. Yes, sir. So what we're looking for, decision maker first, an effective communicator. I would say ball handling, ball security. Say all the time, job security, ball security. If you want to keep your job, you got to keep the ball. So part of that is decision making. Part of that is communication. And so all those guys are going to be competing for that role.
There we go. You could tell I don't know who it was. They were asking about more pump block, but Houston was going more for punt return. Yeah, so we didn't get much answer about pump block there. But of course, with the speed on this team, I think that's what they were getting at there. And, can you get more there? But look, loved hearing the dive in there of how the roles are determined. Special teams aren't an afterthought anymore, and certainly made a positive move last season under Houston's tutelage, but they were much better last year. Now, can you take another step to be game changing? We thought Billy Napier loves calling the special teams game changers. Last year was better, and look, your game changers were. You have Trey Smack only missing 3 field goals all year long, and of course, Crawshaw punting. The game changers in their own rights. So those guys got to do their jobs. They don't. Look, most of the time, if a field goal kicker or a punter does their job, it gets a little overlooked. But if they don't do their job, it's pretty big. A lot of risk reward there for those positions, as there always are for kickers and punters. But when most people think game changers, it is returning a punt return for a touchdown. And Chimere Dike was a pretty good punt returner in his own right, and had some game changing moments. But overall, where are your punt blocks, your field goal blocks, your punt returns for touchdowns, your kickoff returns for touchdowns? That's the next step. I took a big step last year, getting the right number of guys on the field for the most part as well. Special teams Matt comes out. But look, joking aside, they were much better under Joe Houston. Now it's about that next step and those real impact game-changing moments. And now look, the big thing with the list of players, and you all noticed it, big names involved. So how does Florida balance using its most valuable players on special teams while keeping them healthy? It's a complex decision, according to Houston on Saturday in that press conference. And he said the Gators aim to avoid overrocking their star players while recognizing special teams is a crucial role. Look in the SEC, you're looking for any advantage you can get. And the special teams is one of them, field position is one of them. Put your special players there. The typical approach for this staff is, the experienced veterans on special teams and gradually transition those roles into younger players. But, kind of going back to what he said, until these young guys end up taking those roles over, it starts with the vets. And then as the roles get established, then it's my job to make sure that we're not putting too much of a load on one player. And now that we have depth here, it will be great because more guys will be doing more stuff. So what this tells me that if you see some of the younger guys out there for special teams, then they did a lot to get their chance. It's not just throw the fastest guy out there. It's you got to go earn it. We're going to give those spots to veterans. We're going to give those spots to guys we trust. Because special teams can be a disaster too. We saw that benefit Florida in that late game stretch with Ole Miss and LSU. I believe there were some special teams snafus on their end. And Florida's been with Pearsall and DK the last few years. Florida's been pretty safe for punt return. Not muff punts that do Florida in. So that lets the trust and the type of guys they want back there. Another angle is I just love the Stars wanting to be involved. Extending this, I want to go back to Russ Callaway for a second and about Trey Wilson. Callaway, said about Trey Wilson that we're pretty interesting about his development. Quote, he's really buffed up, Callaway told us, describing how Wilson's taken this really professional approach to building his body and getting stronger. And here's what's impressive. He hasn't lost any of that explosiveness. And as Callaway put it, Wilson still got all that quick twitch ability and speed that makes him special. Tyler Miles, of course, the strength and conditioning coach, he had a lot to say on the matter as well. Quote, I don't know if you guys have seen Trey, but I mean, he's jacked. So that durability is going to come with that. But the main thing about getting him back was progressing the right way in the weight room. Yes, but then also the volume in which he's doing running and excess details and all that. Keeping it going, he says, really just want to be very careful with him. Let's make sure that he's 100% and we build him back right before we just let him go. Because if it was up to him, he probably would. But he's done a great job. He's put on a lot of muscle. He's weighing 190 pounds. And now consistently, that's not normal for him. It's a good thing there. And look, I think this really says something that even after the injury, that hip injury to Trey Wilson, that both Wilson and the staff want him to be involved in special teams. They're not backing away from using one of their best playmakers. They're just focused on making plays however they can. I think, that says a lot about the culture there and using these big names. And I think these guys want to make plays on special teams as well. So I think if Trey Wilson's heavy or healthy and heavier, got some more pounds on him, if he can still be that weapon, still that quick twitch speed, yeah, you're going to see him with the ball more in his hands. Now, there's that injury history, of course, but you can't really coach scared too much. And Florida's deep. Florida's offense did some things without Trey Wilson last year. You don't want to carelessly put him in harm's way. But if you think he can be a playmaker, at kick returner, at punt returner, then you let him do so. But, hey, Joe Houston, also among those praising Vernell Brown III. Of course, the 5-star signee. On Saturday, he raved about the true freshman speed. Houston went on to say, quote, he's got what I can't coach. So that's about the best way to put it. And then according to Houston, the speed also, it made DK such a good returner. And we saw it. We saw it at the NFL Combine. Chimere DK, deceptively fast, I think was the best way to put it. But it wasn't deceptive at the NFL Combine when everybody can sit there with a clock and watch the NFL Network and see what time pops up. So according to Houston, that speed also made DK such a good returner. So you can certainly tell, they might be catering to some speed back there. When Billy Napier first got here, what was Xavier Henderson returning punts, and I think that was nothing more than just, hey, put somebody back there who's not going to give the ball away. Okay, you got that. Then Ricky Pearsall comes along. And it took a bit, but Ricky finally found his footing as a punt returner. And by the time he left, he was a pretty good punt returner. DK took it to another level last year. Can somebody else take it to even more game-changing status? So given the amount of fast players he's looking at for Joe Houston for return positions this spring, Houston said it's possible the Gators might go to a, quote, 2-returner set. He added, quote, we're going to try to get creative in how we do it. Could you imagine a Trey Wilson and a Vernell Brown 2-man punt return back there? A Vernell Brown III and Aiden Mizell? A Jaden Ball and a Vernell Brown III? A Dallas Wilson and a Jaden Ball? I mean, Nashawn Montgomery, Tank Hawkins. I mean, we could keep going down the list. Florida's got a lot of speed. We talked about it at the beginning of this episode. You're talking about a lot of receivers here, but Jaden Ball, I thought did a pretty good job as a kick returner last year too. You don't get as many chances, of course, with the touchbacks, but certainly something to look forward to. Florida not shying away from getting their stars involved in the kick return, punt return game. And maybe, if we couldn't really get a clear answer there, in the punt block game as well. I know everybody goes back to the Urban Meyer days there, and Janoris Jenkins and Joe Hayden coming, on punt block and getting there and blocking punts and making game-changing plays. Maybe that's what we're looking for this year in the special teams. All right, good stuff. Good stuff. Glenn Brown asked, what's going on with Asa Turner? Can he help in the secondary? I know he's still trying to get cleared. I've been told by multiple people, even if he gets cleared, probably still wouldn't stay at Florida. Still might go to coaching route as well. It's been a few weeks probably since I've really dove into that. As of now, I would not expect Asa Turner to be a part of this team. And one last one before I sign off here, and we can kind of go through spring ball, but yeah, kind of fits a bit too, and just what we're talking about and how excited we are. Cody Moore says, "What's up, Dave? Just wondering how long it's been since you were excited for a season because of the potential of the team." That's probably 2020, and why that season was a little disappointing to me there in the end, losing to LSU and Bama in the SEC championship, Texas A&M earlier in the year, that pitiful LSU game as well. That Florida team was better than that. And, I remember it was about taking the next steps because you saw it in 2019. You saw the team have a nice foundation, and you saw that Kyle Trask was going to be pretty special, and you had a lot of returning pieces at the receiver spot. The offense took that next step. And then for the defense, it was, man, they were pretty good against the teams they should have been good against, but hey, no shame in not stopping the 2019 LSU defense. Not many defenses did. You didn't really show up in Jacksonville against Georgia. So that was the next step. It was play better defense against the elite teams. Little did we know the defense would just completely fall off of a cliff, and it hasn't been the same since. So, yeah, 2019 to 2020, that's the similar feelings here. Hopefully, we don't get the same results. Now, getting to Atlanta, yes. And you get to Atlanta in this format with this schedule, you're going to the college football playoff. But what I mean by that is you have the expectation and you fall short of the expectation. You're looking for signs of growth, and the growth doesn't happen, or it's very unbalanced. Florida needs a jump on offense to win the SEC, to make the college football playoff. Florida needs a jump on defense to make the SEC championship and a college football playoff appearance. while that winning streak at the end of last season was all well and good, we got to go 12 games here, hopefully more. But in order to get that more, you got to have jumps on both sides of the ball. And for what we're going to discuss this spring practice, all offseason, everything we've already discussed this offseason, I think it's right to have some optimism about where this team is. All right, good stuff. Lots there. Offense, defense, special teams. I think this week we will get to hear from Rob Sale and Gerald Chapman. So offensive line, defensive line. That's going to be the focus. A trench talk right here later on this week on Gators Breakdown. Enjoying being able to talk a little bit of football finally. Spring practice right here. Talking a little bit of football. And like I said, about the only time we get to hear from coaches. So, maybe sometimes in the preseason camp we will as well. But we know for sure here in the spring. So this episode, Russ Callaway, Ron Roberts, Joe Houston. All three aspects of a team. Offense, defense, special teams. That'll do it for this episode of Gators Breakdown. I am your host, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_SEC. Guys and girls out there, thank you for joining me on this episode of Gators Breakdown.